It usually starts in small, invisible moments. You're sitting in a room full of people. They're laughing, talking, passing time, but something in you feels far away. Not better, not colder, just elsewhere. You smile, you nod. You even speak when you're expected to. But inside, a quiet grows. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hums behind your ribs, like a question with no answer. You don't know when it started. Maybe it's always been there. This feeling that you're watching life more than living it, like you're behind glass. You sense too much, feel too deeply. And the world, this loud, blinking, restless world, has no idea what to do with someone like you. So you learn to hide your questions, to soften your voice, to carry your depth like a secret. But it's heavy, isn't it? Not because you're fragile, but because you were never taught how to hold this much without breaking. This isn't about sadness, or being dramatic, or needing attention. This is about walking through life with your soul wide open in a culture that rewards closed eyes and loud mouths. It's about the burden of being deep in a world that only wants you on mute. And maybe you're tired, not just physically, but tired of shrinking. Tired of pretending this noise is enough. If that's you, stay. You're not alone in the quiet. And this might be the first time someone sees you in it. It's strange, isn't it? How telling the truth can make a room grow colder. You say something real, something raw, and suddenly the energy shifts. People clear their throats. They look at their phones. They laugh nervously. They change the subject, and you're left wondering if you should have just kept it to yourself. It's not that your truth was cruel or loud or wrong. It was simply too real for a world built on performances. And so, you learn, moment by moment, that honesty has consequences. Not dramatic ones, just quiet ones. The kind that erode you slowly, like water on stone. You start holding back, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion. Because how many times can you open your soul only to watch people flinch? They call it too deep, but what they mean is, you reminded me of something I've buried. They say you overthink, but what they mean is, your awareness makes mine uncomfortable. You carry meaning in your voice. They carry scripts in theirs. You want to connect. They want to entertain. And there you are, somewhere in between, feeling the distance that no one else acknowledges. You begin to censor yourself like a translator between worlds. You water down your insight. You smooth over the sharp edges of your heart. You tell half-truths just to stay in the room. But your body knows. It always knows. The lump in your throat when you smile too long. The tightness in your chest when your truth is edited. The tiredness that no amount of sleep can fix. This is not social fatigue. This is soul fatigue. Because every time you betray what you know, what you feel, what you are, something small in you wilts. Not all at once, but enough to make the world feel less vibrant. And yet, you continue. Because what's the alternative? To speak fully? To feel loudly? To live without armor? That kind of honesty feels dangerous in a culture built on masks. So you live in pieces. A version of you for work. A version of you for friends. A version of you for the world. And the truest version, the one that burns beneath it all, sits in the background, waiting. Waiting for a space where truth doesn't make people uncomfortable. where feeling isn't labeled weakness, where silence is not awkward but sacred. Maybe that space doesn't come often, but when it does, you know it. Because for once, you speak without rehearsing. You breathe without shrinking. You exist without apologizing. And that is what the soul remembers. Not the noise, not the applause, but the presence. The rare and holy moment when being fully yourself wasn't punished. It was met. You didn't choose to build armor. You built it because you had to. Not all at once, but slowly. A quiet defense against the moments you were too open, too honest, too real. At first, it looked like hesitation. You paused before speaking. You scanned the room before sharing. You measured your words like currency, afraid of spending too much of yourself on people who didn't want the truth. And over time, that pause became your second skin. You started hiding not just your pain, but your joy, your wonder, your wildness. Because you noticed something most people don't. Authenticity makes people uncomfortable, and sensitivity, it terrifies them. They say they want truth until it shows up unpolished and vulnerable. They say they want depth until it asks for silence, patience, presence. So you learned to adjust, to dim, to mold yourself into someone easier to digest. You wore the smile that made others feel safe. You played the role that kept things light. You laughed on cue, even when your heart felt heavy. It's a strange thing to perform your own existence, to be surrounded but unseen, included but untouched. People liked you more the less of you they had to meet. And maybe that's when it really started hurting. Not when they rejected you, but when they accepted a version of you that wasn't real. That's the quiet grief no one talks about. The grief of being loved for who you're not. But what choice did you have? You were born with a depth the world never taught you how to carry. So you became fluent in small talk, safe topics, half smiles. You wore your armor so long that even you began to forget what lived beneath it. The softness, the fire, the parts of you that never got a chance to breathe. And some days you wonder if they're even still there. But they are. They always have been. They're just waiting, not for the world to understand them, but for you to stop hiding them. Because here's the truth. You can't be fully alive while only showing half of who you are. You can't find peace while dragging a mask through every room you enter. At some point, you stop asking for the world to make space for you, and you start making space for yourself. You loosen the armor, just a little. You speak with more truth. You breathe more deeply. You choose presence over performance. And maybe not everyone stays, but you do. You finally stay with yourself. And that is where the healing begins. It's a cruel irony, isn't it? The more you perform, the more you're praised. The more you conform, the more you're welcomed. And the more you silence yourself, the more you're told how easy you are to be around. The mask is rewarded. Not because people are evil, but because the world is tired. Tired of thinking too deeply. Tired of feeling too much. Tired of facing itself. So it celebrates those who keep things light, pleasant, predictable. And if you're someone who carries emotional weight, who sees the cracks beneath the surface, who speaks from a place that isn't rehearsed, you become too much for a culture built on convenience. The mask becomes survival. Not a lie, but a translation. an edited version of you designed to be acceptable. And at first, it feels like a solution. You're invited in, you're liked, you're fun, you blend, but you also begin to disappear. Because the longer you wear the mask, the harder it is to take it off. You forget what your unfiltered voice sounds like. You forget how it feels to speak without adjusting your tone. You forget what it means to exist without explanation. You become fluent in everyone else's language, but illiterate in your own. And even when you try to step out from behind the performance, the world pushes you back in. Don't be so negative. You're overreacting. Oh, why can't you just enjoy the moment? They mean well, but their comfort depends on your silence, so you shrink again and again, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize yourself. Not because you've changed, but because you've been missing from your own life. This is the cost of being rewarded for being someone you're not. And yet, you stay. Because masks come with applause. And the soul speaks in silence. But here's the thing no one tells you. That applause, it never reaches your bones. It never feels the ache. Because deep down, you know they're not clapping for you. They're clapping for the character you created, the costume you wear, the lightness you fake. And eventually, you get tired of hearing your name attached to someone you don't even feel inside. So you start to question, what would happen if I showed up as I am? No filters, no masks, no performance. Would I still be loved? Would I still belong? Maybe not everywhere. Maybe not by everyone. But what if the price of the mask is far greater than the risk of truth? Because staying hidden might keep you safe, but it will never make you whole. You sleep, you rest, you unplug, you turn off the phone, cancel plans, lie in bed for hours, hoping the fog will lift. But when you wake up, you're still tired, not just in your body, but in your being. And that's when you realize this isn't physical. It's not about how much you've done. It's about how much of yourself you've had to hide just to keep going. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep can't touch. A soul-level fatigue that comes from living out of alignment with who you truly are. From carrying too many masks. From biting your tongue. From walking through rooms where your truth had no place to sit. This is the weariness of a life lived in translation. And you feel it in your chest, in your back, in the way your voice lowers without you realizing. In the way your joy doesn't rise like it used to. This isn't burnout. It's not laziness. It's the body crying out for something real. Because the soul, when ignored, doesn't vanish. It turns into tension, into tightness, into silence. And the more you ignore it, the louder it speaks. Not with words, but with symptoms. The race in heart when you lie. The lump in your throat when you smile too wide. The headaches that come after conversations where you couldn't be honest. Carl Jung called this the voice of the unconscious. When what the mind hides, the body reveals. Your truth doesn't disappear. It just finds another way to speak. And eventually, you stop looking for rest in external places. Because the real fatigue isn't from what you're doing. It's from what you're denying. You're tired of being light when you're carrying oceans. Tired of laughing when what you need is to be held. Tired of doing okay when your inner world is on fire. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. You don't need more sleep. You need more truth, more space to exhale, more silence that doesn't feel dangerous, more presence that doesn't demand performance. You need to come home to yourself. Not in a dramatic way, but in small, sacred steps. Breathing more deeply, saying no without guilt, letting yourself cry even when there's no reason. Choosing people who see behind your eyes and don't flinch. This is how healing begins. Not through escape, but through return. Return to the parts of you that you left behind just to make others comfortable. Return to the body that's been screaming truths you were too scared to hear. Because when you finally listen, the exhaustion lifts. Not all at once, but enough to feel like you belong inside your own life again. And that is the beginning of wholeness. There's a quiet kind of suffering that follows you everywhere, even when everything seems fine. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, it doesn't ask for attention, but it lingers. A dull ache beneath the surface of things. A sense that you're never quite where you belong, and no one really sees it. Because from the outside, you look composed, engaged, functional. But inside, you're carrying questions no one's asking. Noticing things no one else seems to feel. Moving through a world that feels half asleep while you're painfully awake. You notice the tension behind someone's smile. You feel the weight in someone's silence. You pick up the energy in a room before anyone has said a word. And while others float, you sink deeper and deeper into everything. You try to explain it. But how do you put into words a sensitivity that feels like it was wired into your bones? People say, don't overthink. Relax. Just enjoy life. As if it's that simple. As if feeling deeply is a glitch to be fixed, not a gift to be honored. But that's the curse of being awake in a sleeping world. You see what others don't. You feel what others won't. And it makes you feel alone in ways language can't reach. It's not that you want to feel this much. You just do. And with every layer you uncover, you realize how much of life is built on avoiding discomfort. People crave simplicity, quick answers, lightness, but you carry questions that don't resolve in a sentence. You crave silence because that's where the real things live. You find beauty in brokenness. You find meaning in the messy. You find yourself drawn to the places others run from. And that's where the pain lives. Not in the feeling itself, but in the loneliness of feeling it alone. You watch others move through routines, roles, rhythms. They seem untouched, unshaken, unaware. And some days you envy them. Not because they're better, but because they're insulated, protected by the very numbness you never learned how to build. But here's the truth. Your pain is not weakness. It's clarity. And your depth, it's not a flaw. It's your nature. And yes, it isolates you. But it also gives you something rare. Vision. Not the kind that sees with the eyes, but the kind that sees through things. Through the noise, through the lies, through the masks people wear when they've forgotten who they are. You haven't forgotten. You can't forget. And that's why it hurts. You feel like a foreigner in your own species, speaking a language of depth in a world fluent in small talk. But don't let the silence fool you. There are others like you. Others who feel the weight of beauty and sorrow at the same time. Others who carry invisible storms and still offer calm to the world. And maybe, just maybe, your presence is the reminder they need. That depth still exists. That truth still has a voice. That even in this sleeping world, someone is awake. You don't shout, you don't argue, you don't try to convince anyone, but your presence unsettles people. Not because you're harsh, but because you see. You walk into a room and the energy shifts. Not because you're loud, but because you carry something different. You ask questions that aren't polite. You bring silence where others expect noise. You look someone in the eye and they suddenly don't know where to look. You weren't trying to disrupt anything. You were just being real. But in a world that has forgotten what real feels like, that alone is rebellion. To be deep in a culture that glorifies speed, surface, and spectacle is to live on the edges of the map. You are not the norm. You were never meant to be. The norm is curated, choreographed, performative. The norm smiles on command, posts happiness, packages truth into sound bites that don't scare anyone. But you live in the in-between, the unedited, the honest mess that most people spend their lives avoiding. And because of that, you are often misunderstood. They call you too intense when all you did was speak with feeling. They call you too serious when all you did was not laugh at things that hurt. They call you too quiet when you were simply listening with your soul. And you begin to realize depth, true depth, is threatening to those still hiding from their own. But here's where it gets powerful. You don't need to change them. You don't need to fight. Your resistance is not in your volume, it's in your presence. Every time you choose honesty over performance, you're pushing back. Every time you sit in silence when the world demands noise, you're protecting something sacred. Every time you refuse to dilute your truth for the sake of being easier, you are honoring what's real in you. And that is a rare kind of strength, a strength that doesn't demand approval, a strength that doesn't need an audience. It's the strength of the rooted, the still, the ones who walk softly but leave a mark on the soul. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to remember what most have forgotten, that life was never meant to be filtered, that feelings were never meant to be flattened, that souls were never meant to be small. So yes, your depth may be inconvenient. It may challenge people. It may even cost you certain rooms. But the rooms you do belong in will feel like home. Not because you were accepted, but because you were seen. Fully. Finally, as you are, and in a world where everyone is trying to go viral, you will go inward. And that is the quiet revolution. You notice things that don't make headlines. The way someone's voice trembles right before they say they're fine. The way the sky looks softer just before it rains. The moment a stranger's eyes fill with emotion, then look away, too quickly to explain. You notice what slips through the cracks, what's almost invisible, what others call nothing, but you feel it. There's a kind of beauty you carry, a secret one. The beauty of watching light spill across a room and feeling your chest ache. The beauty of a sentence that says too little, but means everything. The beauty of a single breath in a world that moves too fast to pause. You've never needed fireworks, or grandeur, or noise. You find wonder in stillness, in the in-between. In the quiet moments, no one else stays still long enough to feel. And sometimes, that's a lonely gift. Because while others chase what's obvious, you linger in what's subtle. You feel moved by things that others miss entirely. And when you try to share it, they shrug or smile politely or say, "That's nice," but you can tell they didn't feel it. And you wonder, am I too soft for this world? But softness is not fragility. It's presence. It's noticing. It's holding space for beauty that doesn't demand attention. It's being open enough to let life reach you before it has to scream. The world is too distracted to see what you see, too numbed to feel what you feel. And yet, you keep seeing anyway. You keep feeling. Loving, grieving, hoping, even when no one else is watching. That's the kind of beauty the world forgets to reward. But maybe it doesn't need to be rewarded. Maybe your gift isn't meant to be applauded. It's meant to be offered. In the way you sit beside someone without needing to fix them. In the way you write words that ache with honesty. In the way you find meaning in a cracked teacup, a trembling hand, a half-finished song. Your depth makes beauty where others see nothing. And that is not weakness. That is grace. So don't harden. Don't numb. Don't turn away from what stirs you. Because what stirs you, what makes your heart swell for reasons you can't explain, that is your gift. It's not meant to fit. It's meant to heal. And maybe the world won't always understand, but someone will. Someone who's also been watching quietly, also been aching silently, waiting for a sign that their softness isn't strange, but sacred. And when your depth meets theirs, something shifts. A recognition, a stillness, a beauty that finally has a witness. That's what you were born for. To feel the beauty no one else sees, and become the one who reminds the world it's still there. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel whole. It doesn't come in a rush or a revelation. It begins in small, almost invisible moments, when you stop abandoning yourself, when you feel the urge to shrink and don't. When you hear that old voice say, "Don't be too much," and you answer it gently, "No, this is exactly enough." Wholeness doesn't mean you're always calm, or always clear, or always centered. It means you no longer edit yourself to be digestible. It means you no longer trade authenticity for approval. It means you gather every exiled piece of you, the sensitive one, the angry one, the joyful one, the scared one, and you say, you belong here. Not when you're fixed, not when you're easier. Now, you stop dividing yourself into categories of acceptable and too much. You stop hiding your depth behind a smile. You begin to return, not to some ideal version of you, but to the one who has always been waiting. The child who asked big questions, the teenager who felt everything, the adult who got tired of pretending. This is the quiet revolution, coming home to your soul after years of silencing it. And it's not clean. It's not linear. Some days you will still reach for the mask, still choose silence over truth, still feel the old ache of being misunderstood. But now, you see it. Now, you know the difference between peace and performance. And even when the world tells you to dim, you've tasted what it's like to burn with your full light. So you come back, again and again, each time with more tenderness, more trust, more truth, until the line between who you are privately and who you are publicly fades, until you no longer need to justify your presence. You simply are, as you've always been, as you were always meant to be. And when you meet someone who's done the same, who's walked into the fire of themselves and didn't turn away, Something unspoken passes between you. A nod, a pause, a soft understanding. You made it. Not because the world made space for you, but because you stopped waiting for it to. Because you chose to become the space you were looking for. And now, you carry it with you, not loudly, not for show, but deeply, quietly, unshakably. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel whole. It doesn't come in a rush or a revelation. It begins in small, almost invisible moments, when you stop abandoning yourself, when you feel the urge to shrink and don't. When you hear that old voice say, "Don't be too much," and you answer it gently, "No, this is exactly enough." Wholeness doesn't mean you're always calm, or always clear, or always centered. It means you no longer edit yourself to be digestible. It means you no longer trade authenticity for approval. It means you gather every exiled piece of you, the sensitive one, the angry one, the joyful one, the scared one, and you say, you belong here. Not when you're fixed, not when you're easier. Now, you stop dividing yourself into categories of acceptable and too much. You stop hiding your depth behind a smile. You begin to return, not to some ideal version of you, but to the one who has always been waiting. The child who asked big questions, the teenager who felt everything, the adult who got tired of pretending. This is the quiet revolution, coming home to your soul after years of silencing it. And it's not clean. It's not linear. Some days you will still reach for the mask, still choose silence over truth, still feel the old ache of being misunderstood. But now, you see it. Now, you know the difference between peace and performance. And even when the world tells you to dim, you've tasted what it's like to burn with your full light. So you come back, again and again, each time with more tenderness, more trust, more truth, until the line between who you are privately and who you are publicly fades, until you no longer need to justify your presence. You simply are, as you've always been, as you were always meant to be. And when you meet someone who's done the same, who's walked into the fire of themselves and didn't turn away, something unspoken passes between you. A nod, a pause, a soft understanding. You made it. Not because the world made space for you, but because you stopped waiting for it to. Because you chose to become the space you were looking for. And now, you carry it with you, not loudly, not for show, but deeply, quietly, unshakably.